So real estate goes up in value. It's easy to get into. So what's some of the other reasons? Well, the government wants you to invest in real estate for investment purposes. They absolutely want you. So if you buy a home to live in, you don't get certain types of, you don't get any real tax breaks. Yeah, you can write the interest off depending upon your income level and things like that. Yes, you can. But with the interest rates being as low as they have been, there hasn't been much to write off. But on an investment property, yes, you get to write off the interest, but you also get to depreciate the value of the property based upon what you paid for it. So if you take what you paid for it, let's say it's $200,000, let's say it's $300,000, and then you subtract the $100,000 of the value of the lot that's sitting on, because the lot doesn't depreciate, right? It's the ground, it's the earth, right? But the structures do. The 2x4s are a year older after you buy it. The furnace is now a year older. It's going to end up having to get replaced. The roof gets to be a year older. And so they then allow you to do what? They allow you to depreciate over a schedule. It's 27 and a half years. And then you have to depreciate it. So you can take that $200,000, you can divide that into the 27 and a half years, or take 27 and a half divided into 200, and it'll give you what you're allowed to reduce your yearly income by. And what that'll usually mean is you're going to sit there and you're going to reduce any of the income from the rents. So as you're gaining rents, then you get the depreciation. So you get to write off the interest on the loan. You get to write off the depreciation based upon the 27 and a half year schedule. Now, if it's a multiple unit building and you're using it to rent, they have another program that came into place. It's called cost segregation, because then you actually get to reduce. You get to reduce that depreciation schedule down to less years. You could end up where your average depreciation is going to be over 10 years. Why? Because when you move in there, they're going to do cost segregation on all the furnaces in the unit. And they can say, well, there's only 4 years left. And then you're allowed to depreciate the rest of all the furnaces over 4 years, because they're going to have to replace them in 4 years. The roof, same thing. Any of the mechanicals, the same thing. Okay, the appliances, the same thing. You get to cost segregate these things. It's a little bit more of a sophisticated program. I get it. And your building usually has to be big enough to adjust for the cost of doing it. But it can be a huge increase in what you get to reduce your gross income by relative to the real estate investment. So, in other words, there's tax advantages, the quote unquote tax loopholes. And the government does this because they want you to go out and buy investment property so you can provide rental stock, rental housing to Americans in this country that can't afford or don't want to buy a single family home or any other home, anything else to live in. They just want to rent. And so you're providing that. So you get all these tax breaks. What's another one you get? Well, if you fix up the property, it's called forced appreciation. Okay, so let's say you go in there and you just do a general remodel and you spend $20,000. Well, you get to deduct that $20,000. Some of it you get to write off right up front in the first year, and other parts of it you get to depreciate it over a depreciation schedule, which gives you what? More tax advantages. And what happens when you spend that money on that unit? Well, when you bought it, you were renting it out for, say, $1,000 a month. And then you went in there and you put $20,000 into the place, and now you're getting $1,500 a month. Now, all of a sudden, you're getting more rent. You got more depreciation to write off against that more rent. At the same time, you raise the value of the building because you increase the rent, or you increase just the value by making it newer, by replacing the old with new, by redoing the bathrooms, redoing the kitchens, redoing the flooring. Whatever you did, you increased the value, because if you went to sell it, you would get more money for the property. Why? Well, because either the rents are higher and there's a formula for increasing the value, or if it's just a single family home, that means that it shows better now. It has better value because it's got newer stuff in it. It's pretty simple. Now, one caveat, make sure that the $20,000 you're spending actually increases the value. In other words, if you're fixing a foundation or you have to fix a roof because it's all screwed up, well, you may not be increasing the valuation of the property, because that's problems. That's money pit. And we've got videos out there to tell you how to not get into a money pit, what to look for when it comes to foundations, what to look for when it comes to structure. You don't want to buy a money pit. You want to spend the money. You want to spend the 20 grand increasing the value of the property so you can increase the rents, because that's another reason why you want to own real estate. Because when you buy it, it has one rent to it, right? There's tenants, or it has the ability to rent out that unit for X amount of dollars based upon the neighborhood, the location, right? Or the way the unit looks. But if you can then improve the unit, and the neighborhood allows you to then increase the rent because of the kind of neighborhood it is, and then you can get more rent because now you've improved the unit, and now you get more rent. Well, damn, that's your money, more money. So now you're getting the property, right? Right? We know how easy it was to get into the property. We know it's going up in value, right? And now you're increasing the rents. Isn't that sweet? See, you're used to buying shit that always goes down in value, right? You're used to buying cars that go down in value. You're used to buying snowmobiles that go down in value, boats that go down in value. When you're buying this kind of property, it goes up in value. The rents go up over time. You can then force the rents up even higher by doing work on the property and making it nicer, so you can bring in a tenant at a higher economic level. And look at what you're doing. And you're gaining traction. And remember, if you got kids and they're at an age where they can come and help you and stuff, you're also then teaching them. You're teaching them capitalism instead of all the bullshit that they teach in these colleges and high schools now that are all run by a bunch of Marxists. You're teaching them capitalism. And on top of it, you're then providing clean, improved units for people to rent and improving their lives. That's really the bottom line. So we talked about the fact it can appreciate. We talked about the fact it's easy to get into. We've talked about the fact that the rents can go up. We've talked about the fact that you can force the appreciation. We talked about the fact that even those costs you can deduct. Well, could there be any more? There's still more. There's always going to be more. Now, what's another thing that you get to do? Well, there's a thing where you get to do a 1031 exchange once you've depreciated that property. So let's say you took that property that was originally a 27.5-year depreciation, and you brought that depreciation schedule down to 10 because you did cost segregation on your units. And now it's the 9th year. You've raised the rents. The rents are actually doing really well. The building's gone up in value tremendously. Or let's just say the building's gone up on an average basis. Doesn't have to go up tremendously, but you've adjusted your income down by that depreciation, by those costs that you've done, all that stuff, right? Well, now you're coming up against that 10th year. And so next year, you won't have anything to depreciate against it. And so then all that increased rent from what you forced the appreciation on, from what the inflation increased the rent on, just from the neighborhood. So let's say the rents are now 60% higher than when you originally bought it. Well, now you're going to end up having to pay the taxes on that money because you don't have any more depreciation schedule to fix the problem of paying taxes. So they let you then exchange to another property. Oh, yeah. And then you not only do you not have to pay back that depreciation, which you never want to have to do. It's brutal because if you sell it and you just sell and want to put the money in your pocket, you're going to have to force that. You're going to have to, pay back that depreciation. And it'll show like income. And you're going to get it really hard. But instead, the government gives you an out. They give you an out. They allow you to sell that property, go buy another property, move all that equity and depreciation into the new property. It gets canceled out, and the depreciation gets canceled out. And now you get to redepreciate. You get to depreciate the new building all over again. 27.5 years. You can do new cost segregation, and all that equity gets shifted over. You don't have to pay the taxes on it, and you get to start the program all over again. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why real estate creates wealth, why it helps to make you richer than your job will ever make you. Your job will make you an income. It'll never get rich. And by the way, can you leave your job to one of your kids? No. Even once you've been there, and let's say you started and you were making 60 grand, and 30, 40 years later, you're making 200. You can't leave that $200,000 job to your kids. No. But you can leave that piece of real estate to your kids. But before we go there, there's another program, another thing that real estate benefits you. So let's say you've got your property and you've owned it for 6 years and you've put some money into it. And the rents have now gone up by 80%, whatever. The building has now gone up by 50%. 50%. Not just from simple appreciation, but because of the fact you've also appreciated the building by forcing that appreciation by fixing it up, right? And so let's say you've added now $150,000 worth of equity to that property. There's another way that you can use that property to have tax-free income. They allow you to go to the bank, refinance the mortgage, because remember, the mortgage was when you originally put on there, and now the property's gone way up in value. The rents have gone way up. And so now you can go to the bank, and let's say you can refinance 60, 70% of what that appreciation is. So let's just make it easy. Let's say it was $150,000 worth of new appreciation. It's 5-6 years later, because you've done all this work and raised those rents and everything else, all the good stuff. And now you can borrow out $100,000. Now, when you borrow out that $100,000, you don't have to pay the taxes on it because it's borrowed money. Government doesn't make you pay taxes on borrowed money. So now if you want to go buy that car, you want to go use that money as a down payment for another property, whatever. And remember, you don't have to pay back the taxes on that as long as when that schedule comes up, that depreciation schedule comes up, you then do a property exchange into a new property, and then the $100,000 that you took out of that first property, you don't have to pay the taxes on, and it gets moved over. Yes, when you sell the property, you'll pay off that loan because it's on that property, but then you can then reopen up another loan on the new property once you've done all the work. This is how this thing just grows exponentially, because it isn't just like a stock where all you're looking for it to do is go up in value or pay a dividend. Go up in value or pay a dividend. You're looking at a piece of real estate that gives you multiple ways to make it go up. You see, when you own a stock, there's nothing you can do to make it go up in value. Nothing. And that doesn't make stocks bad. It just means that you can't, there's nothing you can do. But when you own real estate, there's things you can do to increase the value. And stocks do not give you the tax benefits that real estate gives you. Oh, yes, you can stick it into an IRA and this and that, but then your money is forever stuck. And when I mean forever, I mean until you change jobs or you get to 59.5 or you become disabled, and then you're able to take it out without having to pay the penalty, 10%, and the taxes, income taxes. And I know there's a Roth. We're not going down this rabbit hole, but the bottom line is, as an individual investment, you cannot find a better investment. You don't need a lot to get into it. Let's just kind of sum this up. You don't need a lot to get into it, 3.5%. You don't need much credit, 580 credit score, roughly. Even could be less, I think. I'm just going with 580 because that's pretty low. All right, so you can buy it locally. You can manage it personally. You can teach your kids how to make money in it. You can increase the value by what you do to it. You don't have to pay the taxes on the income from it, the cash flow, okay, the positive cash flow because of the depreciation. You can borrow money out of it and not have to pay the taxes on it. I mean, like, you can then 1035 it into a 1031 exchange it into another piece of property and not pay taxes on any of what you took out of it or any of the taxes from the depreciation value. And you don't have to pay the taxes on the increased equity because you moved it to another property. And then in the end, there's one last kicker. And what is that? When you die, hopefully it's a long time from now, and your kids or grandkids inherit that property, or two properties from now, because let's say you exchange it twice, and let's say there's, now $400,000 or $500,000 worth of equity that if they were to inherit, they might have to pay the taxes on it. Instead, they don't have to pay the taxes on it because the cost basis. See, the cost basis is what you originally paid for it. The date of death cost basis on real estate goes up to the value of the property on the day you die. So your cost basis adjusts upward to cover all the increased equity. So when your kids inherit the property, or whoever inherits the property, they don't have to pay any taxes on any of what you took out or any of the increased equity of the property. Now, I don't know about you. I can't think of what more reasons could you possibly need to buy a piece of freaking real estate as an investment to get yourself going, to get yourself started. We forgot one other thing. You know, when I go through this, there's always one other thing that's a positive, not a negative. We forgot the fact that as the tenant is paying the mortgage today, tomorrow, on the next house, the next property, 3 exchanges down the way, they're reducing the loan on the property. And so then your equity builds up because of the reduction of the loan. Because even on an amortized loan, a certain amount of the money goes to pay the principal and a certain amount of money goes to pay the interest. And so the tenant ends up paying off the building if you own it long enough, or whatever building you exchange it into. Forgot about that one. I mean, there's always one more good reason why to do it. So let's think about that. Let's start to think, why not? What is going to stop you? Now, am I telling you, run out, buy a house today because, you just learned this? No, there's a cycle in real estate, all right? We have to see what's going to go on with this recession that we're coming to go into. We might be able to buy it at a better price. Well, there's another thing we didn't talk about. See, when you go to buy a stock, you can't negotiate the price. You go buy a mutual fund, you can't negotiate the price. We forgot about this one. There's another one. There's always another good reason. When you buy a piece of property, depending upon the cycle you're in the real estate market, whether it's a buyer's market or seller's market, which means if it's a buyer's market, that means you have more negotiating power and you can actually buy a property at a discount. Maybe it's someone who's passed away and the heirs bought the property and they don't care. They just want to get most of the money out of it and they'll sell it to you for less than what it's worth. You think that happens? Maybe it's a foreclosure that you're walking into and you're buying a foreclosure. You think you get it at a discount? We forgot the fact that you could actually buy it right. That's right. I'm going to stop it here because I'll come up with another reason why you should own it. And you're going to think, well, he's just making it up. I'm not making any of this shit up. This is why people historically have become rich in real estate more often than in any other way. I know. Don't tell me about the guy who got rich in Apple because there's only so many. But I can tell you about the hundreds of millions of people over history that have gotten rich in real estate. And I'm not saying don't go buy Apple. But if you want to get rich, for sure, you want to grow wealth, for sure, you want to get your financial freedom over time, it will not make you financially free tomorrow. It will not make you financially free in a year. But you give this a few years and you do this actively, smart, in a smart manner. You take appropriate risk to get the general reward, and it will make you wealthy. That's the roadmap. That's the blueprint. That's why, because the government wants you to do this. They wouldn't give you all these tax breaks, all these ways in which to make money in real estate if they didn't want you to own it. The problem we have in this country, though, is people don't know this shit. They just think real estate is just something to live in as a single-family home and never own another piece. So break away from that thinking. Start thinking like rich and wealthy people think. V. Rigoni, Max, high-performance real estate entrepreneur. Let's get out there, guys. Let's make it happen. And what do I always say? Think big, start now, grow fast.